Hello, my name's Daniel Mathers, and I love sheet music. In this video, I hope to explain how to read sheet music if you're just given a piece of sheet music and you have no understanding of music theory at all. Hopefully, by the end of this video, you should be able to just get a piece of sheet music and be able to, at the very least, understand where you should be looking on the page and how to go away and note bash your part. Another thing that you may have noticed at the beginning of this sheet music, so after the treble clef, but before the rest of the music kicks in, is this symbol here, this 4/4. That is the time signature that the song is in. I will say this right out of the bat before I explain any of it. The most common time signature that you will come across is this one here, 4/4. I can't explain why, it's just the most common. But what does this time signature actually mean? So, if we take this time signature as it's written, 4/4, what that means is we have 4 of a certain note per bar. The easiest way to look at time signatures is to think of them as a fraction, with the top number indicating how many notes there are in a certain bar, with the bottom number being the type of notes that they are. The bottom number in this case, 4, is a crotchet, which is this note here. A crotchet is one of the most common kinds of notes you will find in sheet music, and is also referred to in the American way of describing notes called a quarter note. Americans take the naming of the notes quite literally in terms of fractions. So you have a quarter note, then going above that you have a half note, going one up from that you have a whole note. Whereas in countries like the UK, New Zealand and Australia, these notes are referred to as a crotchet, a minim, and a semi-breve. So if we take this crotchet note as the note value that we are using, this bottom number being the note value, top number tells us that we have 4 crotchet notes in a bar. So one bar is made up of 4 little crotchets notes. We can relate this back to our tempo marking that we were looking at before. Crotchet equals 112. That means there are 112 crotchet notes per minute. Tempos can also be referred to as beats per minute. So if you ever see crotchet equals 112 or something similar, that means crotchet values, there are 112 of those per minute. 112 beats per minute. That's the tempo. Applying this logic to another piece of sheet music with a different time signature, we can see that this one has 3/4, which means there are 3 crotchet beats in a bar. Which means that instead of counting it as 1, 2, 3, 4, which is a beat that a lot of people will be familiar with, instead there are only 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's important to know how note values fit into bars at the same time. So, like we mentioned before, a crotchet or a quarter note fills up 1/4 of the bar. There are 4 of them in any given bar of 4/4. Quarter notes fit 4 to a bar. Minims or half notes only fit 2 to a bar. Semi-breves only fit 1 to a bar. One semi-breve is worth the length of 4 crotchets, or one whole note is the same as 4 quarter notes. N/4/4. If we divide our quarter notes or crotchets even more, we get what are called quavers or eighth notes. It means that instead of just having 4 in a bar, boop, 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 we instead have 8 in a bar. So that would look like that. In fact, you can see this written into the sheet music itself. In the left hand of the piano part, you can see that the first bar is almost completely full of quavers. A good way to visualize how note values fit into each other is by thinking of a bar as a pizza. One whole note, or a semi-breve, in a bar of 4/4 is the entire bar, is the entire pizza. By splitting that into two, we get two half notes, or minims, but they both fit in the same space as the whole note, as the semi-breve. We can then divide the minims, or half notes, into quarter notes, or crotchets. There are 4 of those that fit in the same bar. Dividing it again, we can have 8 quavers, or eighth notes, in the same space as 4 quarter notes, or crotchets, 2 half notes, or minims, or 1 whole note, or a semi-breve. And that is a very easy way to visualize how notes combine with each other and fill up a bar. However, it's important to remember that this mainly applies when looking at songs written in 4/4. In this song, Reindeers Are Better Than People from Frozen, it is written in 3/4, which means that 3 quarter notes is the length of the whole bar, which we can see in this first bar here. 3 quarter notes, length of the entire bar. However, you can also see in the left hand of the piano what looks like a half note or a minim with a dot next to it, and that takes up the entire length of the bar. This dot next to the half note means that you take half the length of the note and add it onto itself, which is a little bit hard to wrap your head around, so I'm going to explain this visually. In a bar of 3/4, we have 3 crotchets. 3 crotchets can be condensed into 1 half note, or minim, and then 1 crotchet. We can't have 2 minims or 2 half notes in one bar of 3/4. It just doesn't fit. What the dot means is that you take half of the value of the note, so remembering here that 1 minim note is 2 crotchet notes, or 1 half note is 2 quarter notes, we take half of this and add it on to the value of the note itself. So since a minim or a half note is worth 2 crotchets or quarter notes, it means we half 2 and get 1. Half the value of a minim is 1 crotchet. So we take that crotchet and we condense it into a dot and we put it on to the minim. And suddenly that dotted minim is worth 1, 2, 3 crotchets. That is how dots work in music. You can also see it down here. We've got a dotted crotchet, which means we add half the value of a crotchet, in which case would be a quaver, or half of a quarter is an eighth. We add that onto itself, and suddenly it is worth 1.5 crotchets, or 3 quavers. On the flip side of note values are rests. Rests follow the exact same principle and mechanics as note values, except they look different. For example, a crotchet rest, which is one of the most common that you will find, looks like that. A scribble. Half of that, a quaver rest, looks like that, like a little 7. Going up from that, you have the minim rest, and the minim rest looks like a little rectangle sitting atop one of the lines of the music, generally the middle line of the stave. If it's sitting above the middle line, it means that it is a minim rest, meaning it has 2 crotchet beats worth of rest in it. Where it gets confusing is that a semi-breve rest or a whole note rest looks like that. Exactly like the minim rest, except it's hanging onto the bottom of the second line down, and it is the length of an entire bar in 4/4. You can see that since in Tonight Belongs to You, you don't come in for the first 3 and a bit bars, you've got a full bar rest, another full bar rest, another full bar rest, then you've got a minim rest. You can see there the difference between the semi-rev rest and the minim rest. Then you've got a quaver rest before coming in on a quaver and then a crotchet. So those are how you count rests. Thank you for watching. My name's Daniel, and I hope this has been helpful. Cheers, guys!